Welcome to episode 8 of the weekly vlog. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Paul Sparks. I teach spirituality one-to-one and I also do online classes. So once again, thank you for all your feedback about the weekly vlogs. And I put a little poll on my Instagram story asking what you would like to see as the next topic. And the one that came out with the most votes was consistency. So we're going to talk about what does it mean to be consistent, not only in your spiritual life, but just day to day as well. And why is this important? I talk to people one-to-one many times who feel like they lack consistency in some sort of area of their life, right? So if we think about it, it might be health and going to the gym. It might be consistency within our relationships. It might be consistency with effort that we make with our career. Like, it can be a million things, but there's this theme that we somehow fall off the wagon, right? That we lose consistency, that we find it hard to build in consistent habits over a period of time. And we all know that consistency feels good. Think about a friend in your life that's there for you no matter what. They pick up the phone, they are always making time for you. You get the same version of them every time, regardless of what they're going through. You know, we know that we really appreciate when other people or situations are consistent for us. You know, when we go for a coffee and we always expect to get the same service and we want our cappuccino a certain way, you know, we can't handle it when it's not consistent, when it's not the way that it usually is. We don't like it. So we are hardwired to expect consistency from other situations and things around us, yet we don't always display that same consistency ourselves. And the first example I want to give you when we think about consistency is the sun. When we look at nature, it's really consistent, right? So the sun, regardless of what happens, still comes up every single morning, right? There's a consistent flow. Another thing that really keeps going is change. Like, there's a consistent flow of evolution, of things moving forward. You know, we know that when things are terrible in our lives, that usually if we look back, like, they usually lead us to something better. Like, life changes, it moves on, our emotions change, how we view situations change. There is a constant flow and evolution and creation. We are part of that creation every day of our lives. And so when we look at that, it tells us something, because going back to the sun, there's a element of consistency in the world around us. So what that means is when we are not being consistent, we are almost out of the flow of the universe. It's an unnatural phenomenon that we would go against what we should do. And I think that it's about understanding, first of all, how do we build consistency, but also why is it that we keep falling off the track in the first place? So let's look at some practical tools as to how we would build a more consistent practice into whatever it is in our lives. So number one is to reframe your mindset towards the situation. Usually what it means, first of all, is that a person is saying, I need to do this. Like, I need to go to the gym. I need to text that friend that I haven't spoke to. You know, I need to go to my job today. When it comes from a mindset of something that you're obligated to do or that you need to do, this is the first problem, right? You're going to probably fall off because your intention and the seed level of that is not really coming from the right place. So instead, what if we said something like, I get to go to the gym and look after my health, right? I am so excited because I want to speak to my friend and it's really important, right? Like, we're reframing the reality so that the mindset is not about something that we need to do, but something that it's a privilege to do. Like, not everybody can get up and go to the gym and is fit enough to do that. So number one is that understanding that the mindset needs to be in a place of, I get to do these things. Number two is knowing your why. So it is really understanding why you're doing that thing and what it looks like in the big picture. So for me, studying spirituality for so many years, there's been like points where I've done it more than others. But what keeps me consistent now is because I have the data over the years to know that when I invest in my spiritual work, the outcome's really good. I feel better, I feel more grounded, I feel more rooted to my values. I've got a higher sense of purpose and what's important. So even on the days I don't feel like it, that allows me to keep going because I've got a really clear, sharp look at the why, right? So again, go back to the examples that I gave. If it was going to the gym, then your why might be because I know it's going to make me feel better mentally. I'm going to like the way my body looks. and it's just a non-negotiable, right? When it comes to investing in your friendships, it may be that you say, you know what, this is a really important person in my life. I want them around. I can see them in my life, hopefully in 20 years. So it's worth the investment. I have to continue to build a relationship. If we think about also from this perspective, that consistency comes from many times we do things and we think once we've mastered them, like we can let them go a little bit, right? But I think that we understand that anything worth having, let's think you get your dream job, you wanted it for years and you finally get it. We would understand that just getting the job is not where the story ends. We wouldn't stop making an effort at that point. We would understand that at that point, that's really when the work begins. People watch fairy tales and at the end, they see the prince and the princess getting together and running off into the sunset. Anybody in a relationship or a marriage knows that's really where the work begins. That's when you start to put in the effort more and the consistency has to be there. So that point of really knowing your why and being conscious of why you're doing something and what's the big picture is also going to set you up for success. The third point is stop relying on your emotions so much. When you think about feeling it, like I'm feeling motivated today, I want to go to the gym today, I'm excited, versus the days that you're tired, you've had a really busy day at work, and you're emotionally just want to sit on the couch and eat ice cream, right? If we listen to that all the time and we are led constantly by our motivation or our emotional system, we won't be consistent because we are only going by, we're like a leaf in the wind, we're going by what we feel day to day, right? So actually it's interesting because often in spirituality, you would think that the answer would be to lead by emotion. In these instances, it's absolutely the opposite. Think about your relationships in your life. Sometimes you're really invested and really excited to see the person, and sometimes you really can't be bothered spending time with them. But consistency comes from overriding those emotions. Actually, it's about you being able to rise above those things and do the thing that you know is good for you, whether you feel like it or not. So we've looked at 3 tips that are going to help you set a foundation for consistency. But what I would say is we also want to explore what are the barriers. And I find that one of the biggest ones that I come across with people that I coach is perfectionism. People thinking that everything needs to be exactly perfect, or I need to do exactly the thing that I said I'm going to do. And if I don't, then what's the point, right? We set the bar too high. We set the expectations too high. So think about the classic example of somebody who says, I'm going to start a diet on Monday, and they do really well for the first week until Saturday night. They end up going out, they have a few drinks, they have a takeaway on the Sunday. Now, what happens for a lot of people is they go, well, you know what, like, it's not perfect, so I'm just going to give up. And that leads to a month of eating takeaways, right? It's about understanding from a spiritual perspective that we're going to fall, we're going to make mistakes, like not everything's going to be perfect. So not setting that standard of perfectionism, which is going to set us up for failure anyway, means accepting that we're not always going to get it right, accepting that at times we're going to go off the path. But the answer to that and the antidote is to pull yourself back to it as quickly as you can. So think about that person who goes out on the Saturday night, they eat the takeaway on the Sunday. They just have to draw a line under it and start again on the Monday and get back on the horse. I know personally that there's concepts that I've learned spiritually where I felt they were amazing and I've mastered this and I'm great at this. And then, I get angry the next day and I was such a spiritual person. That doesn't mean that I've failed. It just means I've fallen off and I need to get back on and try again, right? I think, it is also the example I always love to give of a baby, right? They say that a baby takes something like over 1,000 times to try and attempt to stand up before they actually start walking, right? But they're consistent. It's built into them that they will get up and try again and again and again, right? So we have to take the same approach, that understanding that we will fall, that that's a natural part of the process. And really that understanding that in our lives, anything that we're building, and when we're looking at it spiritually, we are not looking for perfectionism. What we're looking for is that we show up more times than we disappear. That every time we want to go and run and hide, we don't. And that we show up anyway. And when we're not feeling something, we're still there anyway, and we're still present, and we continue to move forward with that big picture mentality of knowing why I'm doing the things that I do. And when we implement those things, then we will see real change and true consistency.